I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2017 to order. As is customary, our first item on the agenda is public forum, limited to 3 minutes on any agenda item. Does anyone would like to address the board in public forum? Sure, pass them on. Thank you. Name and address for the record, please, Sue.
Sue Robbins, resident, 798 Mulberry Point Road. I'm also the president of the Mulberry Point Association. I just have a short prepared speech I'd like to read. Last Monday, May 8th, the Board of Selectmen considered the proposed extension of the town's water system to our three communities of Mulberry Point, Tuttle's Point, and Long Cove Association. The Board of Selectmen unanimously adopted a resolution referring this project to a town meeting on May 24th and a referendum on May 31st, subject to the Board of Finance approval. The project, with an estimated cost of $3.4 million, will not be paid for by the town. It will be paid for entirely by us, the residents of these three communities, and a contribution from the water company. The town has obtained all the necessary easements for installation of the water main. We understand the water company agrees the town's project cost estimate is reasonable based on the experience with similar projects. We'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen, especially Mr. Mazza for his leadership, and the hard work for Dennis Johnson and others, including Pamela Millman, outside counsel Norb Church, and the engineering firm of Wright Pierce. As you know, with this project in mind, our state representatives, Pat Widlitz and Ed Myers, went to bat for us. They succeeded in getting the PURA laws changed so that the water company could more than double its permitted contribution. The water company agreed to contribute $1 million towards extending the existing water system if 41% of our residents were willing to connect. Here's what happened. In February, the water company sent out commitment letters to our residents. Based on the returns, fully 120 owners out of 145 agreed to hook up, and each has made the cash deposit required with those commitment letters. The water company has provided the town with a complete list of the 120 homeowners. We didn't just get 41% commitment. A whopping 83% of our residents committed. With 83%, the water company's contribution rose to $1.5 million. And why did 83% commit? We are desperate. Our town officials can confirm both the state and our health department, as well as the consulting engineers retained for this purpose, have definitively determined that our communities do not have an adequate water supply for basic living. And many wells are contaminated. Further, after extensive study, the town and state also have concluded there will be no adverse environmental impact. This project, vital to our health and safety, also fulfills the promise of Guilford's Coastal Resiliency Plan. That plan promises safe water to all Guilford residents, including us. The plan recognizes with rising sea levels, the problem is increasing, and if not addressed now, the town and its taxpayers will be forced to pay more money later. The $1.5 million from the water company cannot be guaranteed in the future. The time for this project is now. And most importantly, for the board's consideration, the project will cost the taxpayers of Guilford no money. It will be fully funded by the residents of our three communities and the water company contribution. We respectfully ask the Board of Finance for its approval so this project can proceed to the town meeting and referendum, where we anticipate a favorable vote on this desperately needed, long-awaited extension of reliable, safe water to our communities, again, at no cost to other taxpayers. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to address? Good evening.
Okay, good evening. My name is Melissa Dayton. I live at 42 Faulkner Drive in Tuttle's Point. I would like to second the statements of my neighbor and colleague Sue Robbins of Mulberry Point. As president of the Tuttle's Point Association, I can attest both to our critical need for reliable water and the wide support for town water in the Tuttle's community. In Tuttle's Point alone, 81% of our members demonstrated their financial support for this project by submitting a deposit with their affirmative response to the Connecticut Water Company. 5 additional households, while opting not to hook up at this time, have expressed support for the project. This represents a community support rate of more than 91%. I, too, would like to thank the Guilford Selectmen's Office and the Guilford Health Department for their leadership, diligence, and responsiveness to our communities. Our state representatives, along with environmental, engineering, and public health professionals at the state, have worked to make town water a reality in our 3 communities and more affordable than ever before. The need is real. So are the benefits to the health of our residents, public safety, and the viability of our properties. Tuttle's Point, Mulberry Point, and Long Cove will benefit from the installation of a public water main and will foot the bill for this installation with a contribution from Connecticut Water. There will be no cost to the Guilford taxpayers at large. We respectfully request Board of Finance approval tonight so this long-needed project may proceed to a town meeting and referendum and an anticipated favorable result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you should pass these around.
Anyone else wishing? Well,
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Canestri. My wife and I live on Bunker Hill Road in Guilford, and we've been town residents for over 40 years. And I have a plumbing and heating company in town, and which I run. I have 6 employees, 6 journeyman plumbers, and it seems like we're always down at Mulberry Point. And whether it's ultraviolet light systems to kill bacteria, because of a lot of the wells there are below grade, and the septic systems that are there are antiquated, and they typically leach into the wells. And so a lot of people have E. coli. So they need these bulbs. Now, they're supposed to be replaced annually. Sometimes the bulb something will happen to it. And people call, when there's a malfunction, they have no water. So it forces emergency calls where we got to send plumbers out, go locate bulbs. And so these people can have water. And so, it is, I feel for them. That's why I'm here tonight. And that's just, one part of it. That's the E. coli getting into well water, and, which is, it's bad. It's bad for children, and it's, a lot of these people live there year round. However, some of them rent. And so when you got a tenant in there and there's E. coli in the water, it becomes an emergency liability. It's big problems. That's one part. The other thing is that they're not drilled. A lot of them are not drilled. So they're shallow wells, and the water is corrosive. So it's eating away at their plumbing. The piping is all thin, so, we get calls during the week, Mrs. Jones shut off the valve and it broke off in her hand. Well, it's like paper because the water is actually thinning out the copper water supply there. it's, some of we can't, we have to repipe things, and we just can't make easy repairs. We have to open, there's no basements. A lot of those homes that are old, they have no basements, so we have to make access, and it's big expenses for the people that live in these neighborhoods of, Rock Point and Mulberry Point and the Horseshoe there. So, never mind, the least amount is the staining issues, but, so, the water they do have runs out a lot in the summertime. We get calls and there's no water. There's a lot of those homes share one well. And so, someone's doing the laundry over here, they had some guests over here. This fellow loses his water. There's just not enough. And to compensate that, the people that can afford and have the room will put in storage tanks under their house, right? And they fill it with water from the well, and then when the well water gets depleted, there's nothing in there because they're shallow. The pump shuts off, and then they'll fill the other tank. However, when you have sitting water, you develop bacteria. So even if it wasn't contaminated by, a leaching septic field, you have to treat that. So not only you got the cost of these big tanks, then you got elaborate pump systems. You got water going in, then you got to pressurize it, and then, it's a big to-do just for drinking water. And everything requires service. These bulbs, we got several dozen customers there that, have to pay thousands of dollars for the system initially, and then maybe $250 to $300 annually to replace a bulb. But, and then servers on these machines. So it's a nuisance, and I think the water piping. Yes. We also have customers on Mulberry Point and Rock Point, Decatur. When we have a harsh winter, they'll call up like everybody else. They have no water. And a lot of the plumbers won't even go there because they know how difficult it is to work in that area. There's the crawl spaces you really have to, when you say crawl space, we usually ask, how much? So, if you had 3 feet, that's adequate. But some of them there only have a foot. So you really have to crawl commando style and try to make repairs. And it's just, so a lot of plumbers don't go. So we get a lot of the calls. We go. But the problem is in these harsh winters, when they call, it's because the water line from the well to the house is only down a foot because there's ledge. And the whole line horizontally freezes. So they're without water, and there's nothing I can do. Until they call me back again. You got to do something. So, you try everything. We got the electric thawing machines. We try to thaw it, and we can't get through. And then I've had customers after 2 weeks with no water. They go, Paul, you got to do something. I said, well, I can get a buddy of mine with a backhoe. We can dig it up. Dig through the snow, jackhammer through the frost. It's going to be a couple $1,000, but we have to dig a line, remove that one that's solid, it's frozen because it's, we're in a deep freeze, then run a new line, and then bring in fill and then berm it up. So we have like 3 feet of cover. But again, thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. And they have no choice, because what are they going to do? They don't want to leave their home. So those things happen. And then the people that have newer wells that are drilled, they're in a salt marsh area over there. You're going across the causeway from Mulberry Point to Rock Lane, around Decatur Avenue. Those, because of the air, the salty sea air, and then the water, tide water, that's so close to some of those homes, the salt water eats away at the steel. And when it eats away at the steel, then the groundwater gets in and starts contaminating. So those have to be dug up. We can't dig them by hand. This means bringing in equipment, digging these things up, and then replacing that, the pump. So, these people are spending a lot of money and not really getting much for it. I mean, if I do a new bathroom for somebody, they go, "Oh, you did a great job, got a new bathroom." But they're not happy when I have to tell them, it's $2,000. Actually, there's one lady, we got her water on, I gave her a bill for $2,000. They all started clapping because they had water. I mean, that's how it was. So that's about it.
Thank you very much, Paul. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
I'm Don Knapp, 744 Mulberry Point Road. I'll be very brief. Today's project was to get drinking water by the bottle so that we could make ice cubes and have a cold Coke or maybe a little libation. At any rate, the water we have is fine even for cooking and for washing clothes and so forth, but it is not for drinking. So today's project, as I said, was to take all of the bottles that I have saved, and I've counted them today. There were 32 gallons. You cart 32 empty gallons into your car, and you go find a place to fill it, and that's easy. It's carting the 32 gallons back into the house that changes your mind. Please, we're willing to pay, but I'm getting too old to haul the water.
Thanks. Anyone else wish to address the board? Public forum. Going once, going twice. Sold. Thank you. Thank you for your input. Item 2, and that is to consider and act upon a resolution approving an appropriation and borrowing authorization for costs related to the 2017 Mulberry Point Water Main Extension Project, contemplated to include a water main extension to serve properties located in the neighborhoods of Long Cove, Mulberry Point, and Tuttle's Point, and to be connected to the existing distribution main of the Connecticut Water Company, related equipment, improvements, and appurtenances, related land or easement acquisitions, and other work related to the project and to the financing thereof. Is there a motion? Second? Second.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself. I've got a conflict of interest.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joe. Joe, you had asked to address the board first before we deliberate. Yep.
Good evening. First of all, I sent the board chairman a memo on May 8th, and the chairman had contacted us.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. You can always count on Mike. That's
early in the
contacted
tape,
me
at least.
over the weekend, and did point out a glaring error. One word. It was a typo, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad you did that. And I will pass these memos out. We did contact bond counsel today, and he did change the resolution, and the word changed from "of" to "or." And thank you for that correction. Okay, so we passed those out with the memo. All right. There should be 7, one for Jeff. It's not hard, guys, they're all attached, okay? All right, so, like I said, the chairman pointed that out, it was Sunday morning, that's why he wasn't at church. He was reading the resolutions.
No, it was like, I didn't want to wake my wife up. Our Mother's Day.
Okay, I'm not going to do this alone. We have Attorney Norm Church here, and our in-house counsel, Pam Millman, and Dennis Johnson are going to join me in a second. But first of all, I did want to go over a couple of key points, which Sue Robbins did an excellent job for us. That this project has been going on for at least 18 months, but prior to that, about 15 years under the direction of Dennis Johnson. The water company had sent out a commitment letter to all of the 145 residents that would be affected, the property owners, and the response was fantastic. As Sue had mentioned, we had over an 80% response, and the response was by way of a commitment form with a deposit, and that was over an 80% response. So we're very, very encouraged. The Board of Selectmen did approve the resolution to go to a town meeting on May 24th, and we did set a referendum date of May 31st. This will be a town-wide referendum. Now, I was asked prior to this meeting as why we have to go to a town referendum by Mr. Ailes. And the reason we have to go to a town referendum, and we can get that out of the way, Mike, if you don't mind me answering that, now is because we're actually indebting the entire town, even though the 145 property owners will pay back the amount of this project. Okay, the project is $3.4 million. The water company is committed to pay $1.5 million, which leaves us about $1.9 million net that the 145 property owners will have to pay. Now, how are they going to pay this? They will pay it through a special assessment that they will receive from the tax office or tax collector, and they will pay it back. They have the opportunity to pay it back over 20 years at a 2% interest. And that's basically the program. So now I'm going to call up the people who are the specialists on this, and that will be Attorney Church and Attorney Millman and Dennis Johnson.
I have a quick question.
Hold on. Which couple is, okay? And then you can ask them all the questions you want, okay? I can sit over there if you guys want to ask the questions, okay? I would suggest that they can make their presentation first,
Yeah,
then
and then we'll let her take
Okay.
questions.
Okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. As you remember, November 2015, we were all before you because of a charter provision and a receipt of a petition for eminent domain. And at that time, the end of that meeting, you had a motion to basically instruct us to go get all the easements for the route, thinking that we might have that one problem at the end, but let's get it all before we deal with the initial problem. So at that time, and actually prior to it, we hired Norm Church, and I'll let him tell you where we are with the easements.
So we already had a number of easements in place when we were before you last. And the sticking point was we needed to go through two streets, so we thought, in Indian Cove, which are private roads. And in anticipation of all of the easements that we were going to need, we had title searches done to confirm ownership of the properties that we needed to cross or the roads that we needed to go under. And it turned out that when we did the title search, one of the roads that we had initially thought was an Indian Cove Road turned out not to be an Indian Cove Road. That was Lower Road. In fact, the title search revealed that it belongs to the Long Cove Association. Indian Cove ended up having their own title searches done, and the searcher came back and agreed with us that Lower Road actually belonged to Long Cove. So we obtained an easement from Long Cove for Lower Road. And then the last sticking point was we needed about 150 feet on Daniel Avenue to connect then across a creek to connect to a town road. And we ended up having a family that bordered that road that really ended up being sort of the knight in shining armor for us, and came forward and offered to grant us an easement across the front of their property so that we could connect the route. Dennis will show you, I'll defer to Dennis for a moment because Dennis can show you where the route will go.
If you're familiar with the old Sachem's Head area, currently there's a water main that goes along Old Sachem's Head Road. It's been there for many years. That water main is about 1,200 feet away from Lower Road, Upper Lower Road it's called. So we're planning on connecting that 1,200 feet to the water main and running the water main down Lower Road into the Indian Cove area. And down here, Norm was talking about, there's a property owner that owns property all the way along Daniel Avenue, and he's agreed to allow us to run an easement along his property line, actually on his property, so that we can avoid going onto Daniel Avenue, which is owned by the Indian Cove Association. So that alternative route through the private property owner's front yard will allow us to cross over onto the town-owned property and then into Mulberry Point Association, which are all these blue lines, and Tuttle's Point Association, this section here. And we have easements secured from those associations, Long Cove, Fisher Property, and the private property owner here. So that completes the final loop.
And with regard to those easements, I am currently holding those in escrow, pending the ultimate town approval, going through all the processes, and this being one of the steps. So if we get confirmation of this, ultimately with the last step being the town meeting, then at some point after that we'll be able to release the easements from escrow and have them recorded on the land records. And in anticipation of that, we also had a surveyor, engineer prepare easement maps of the routes for us. One thing I wanted to point out, Joe had mentioned it's the payback by the residents. It's 2%. It's over 20 years. I think you said 12? 20. Okay, so I wasn't sure if I heard that right. So it's a 20-year payback on the payment.
Then subsequent to receiving all the easements into escrow, or actually simultaneously, we were working with the water company and entered into a service agreement in December of 2016, which is the document that provides the contribution that the water company would agree to make if we had a certain percentage, and it was a sliding scale. The water company, is in the process of obtaining its approvals. It requires regulatory, but they have been working closely with us, and they should be filing their approval requirements right after a successful referendum, if that occurs. I think Norba's also mentioned that the cost, many people have mentioned the costs are all passed through to the homeowners. On the primary route, whether they hook up or not, they will be assessed. That's just for clarity purposes. Homeowners on a secondary route,
We have a number of homes that, a handful of homes that will be passing in front of, primarily on the lower part of Lower Road. And they will be considered to be part of what we'll call a secondary service area, which essentially would mean that they would not participate in the payback. They would not be part of the 145 homes. But because they are identified as being secondary area, if they subsequently decide that they would like to hook in, at that point, they would pay the same amount that everyone else is paying in terms of an assessment, and then they would be able to hook up to water. So we're looking at perhaps 6, 7, 8 homes that might be identified as secondary area homes.
and then procedurally, where we are at today is that resolution before you, which if you accept the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen for the appropriation under 6.6 of our charter, it's a charter requirement, then per Charter Section 7-5, because the bonds would be more than $1 million, or then it needs to go to referendum, to machine vote. So what's going to happen at the town meeting, for the public to understand, is it's really, it's for discussion and education and comment, and then at the end, the moderator will send it to the machine vote.
Any questions?
Question.
You had,
Sure.
is it specific to the project itself, or, okay?
I have a question for you, Pam. You referenced the water company's role in this and the fact that they would have to secure approvals. Is there any question about their securing the approval for this? There are evidently a number of regulatory
Pura,
steps, agencies, and processes.
it's a very good question. Pura is the regulatory body, and we received information with the water company and updated information this afternoon on it. They were unable, from their position, to file with Pura until it was a chicken and egg thing, until we had a successful referendum. So as soon as Dennis will be working on providing them with information for their Pura filing. It's a brand new statute, which was mentioned earlier. Pat Widlitz was behind getting that statute changed. So it's kind of a new, clearly it's new to them as well.
We're the first town.
We're the first town.
First one.
Under the
Yeah,
statute.
very first
And
one.
that's because of Pat, efforts.
But, you know, I can't make any guarantees, but I feel like they sound confident. They, you know, we may be going to some of the Pura hearings just to show kind of support for it. So we'll work, while they're going through their Pura regulatory, we'll still keep working and then
But
take it from there.
They can't file with Pure until the town has said, you have the authority to do that. Okay.
Why are you talking about Pura? Has Pura ever denied an application of this type that you're aware of?
Well, because it's brand new.
It's new, it's new.
But there have been similar types of arrangements where they
Yes,
paid less.
I really can't speak to that.
The sense that we got in all the months of speaking to the water company, they have a relatively high confidence level on this.
Okay.
So that's all I can say.
I think there's some pressure coming from
Okay.
Yeah.
legislators.
Good.
Do we know when we will be reimbursed the $1.5 million from the water company?
It's set forth in the agreement with the water company, and it's a half at the beginning.
Essentially half at the beginning of the
Of
project
construction.
and half at the end.
So do we need to bond the half that's due at the that we're getting back at the very beginning of the project? Is it necessary to bond for that then?
You always want to bond for the entire cost of the project, and then you don't have to come back. And the thought is, and the plan would be, that although you bond for the entire cost of the project, we won't use it all.
And we'll make sure there's no prepayment penalty when we get the money.
No prepayment penalty, and the state will give us money in progress payments. So we have to show, we demonstrate that we've done this amount of work, and we got a payment that comes into our account.
So that reference to the state is that revolving loan, the drinking fund loan, just so we don't confuse things. So we've got the water company contribution, we've got the loan that he's working on.
I want to make one clarification. The term bonding is an art form. We are authorizing bond appropriations in the amount of $3.4 million or whatever the number is. On day one, if it's approved, we will not be going to the market bonding that amount of money. We'll be going to the market at various times to bond what we need. As Norb just mentioned, the methodology is we get voter approval for bonds in the amount of the whole amount, similar to what we do with the Board of Education building program. So we will not, it is not anticipated that we will not be issuing or going to the street for the total amount of the authorization that is going to be approved by the voters.
We're getting approval for an appropriation, basically, is what we're doing.
Are there any buildable lots along the way that don't have homes on it? And if so, are they being included in the count to be assessed?
I've asked Dennis to check to see whether there are any potential building lots. To the extent that we find any potential building lots, those would be considered to be in the secondary area, so that if they become, somebody builds on them and wants to hook up to water, they pay the same assessment as everyone else.
I had a question as it related to DPH, your Dennis's Department of Public Health, and working with DEEP. And I recall back in spring of 2016 that we received some form of report from DEEP in support of this project.
Yeah, the Department of Public Health did accept our feasibility study. They sent a letter to the selectmen stating that they did accept the preliminary engineering study and the feasibility study for the project and recommended implementing the alternative of extending public water to the area. Okay. So that was the approval from the Department of Public Health.
Good, thank you.
And then lastly, I sent out an email, and I believe you responded, but I've been out, so I haven't seen the response. Everybody agrees that the cost will be borne by the association. We use the word defray in the language here, and to me, defray means part or all. So I was concerned that it could be gray. So as long as you are comfortable with this being all and not part or all, then
yes, we went over it. We worked with our bond counsel of more than 10 years, Doug Gillette from Day Pitney, who thoroughly understood the project, and I did go over that language with him in particular, and he stands by the language and says
it means
it's
all.
Consistent. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question to some of the other cost elements that have been mentioned here. We talked about a survey and an engineer, title search. Are those costs being borne by the cost of the project, therefore being passed along to the residents?
And Norb's cost.
And Norb's cost as well. We already got you covered, and Dennis, right? Right.
It's all included in the number and reaching that figure that we're seeking your approval on tonight.
Good. The next question is regarding the special assessment. Are we placing liens on the property? How does that work?
There will be at the very end. We get our bottom line of what the cost was minus any contributions that came from other sources. And for the most part, we just divide it by 145, and that's the assessment. There will be, we will have a hearing before that, and then the Board of Selectmen will vote on imposing an assessment, and then there will be a notice of assessment that's recorded on the land records for each of those homes.
And that's at the end, the
Very end.
construction.
When we're completely done and we've got everything accounted for.
And understand, that's just for the main, not for the hookup from the main to the house.
That's the owner's
That's the
responsibility.
owner's responsibility.
Right.
Understood. Understood. Other questions? No?
Is there any liability to the town, so this is all being driven by those homeowners that want to do this, is there any liability that the town has if something goes wrong during the project? They kind of come to the town for any reason?
Well, people will always come to
They're
the
always going to
town.
come, yeah, but is there,
They pay anyway.
The only remote possibility would be if, by our calculations right now, with 145 homes and with the cost as we have best projected it, we are looking at an assessment of $13,000 and change, Dennis? $13,161 per household. And the way this works is they're being benefited. And the question becomes, have they received a benefit of $13,161? In other projects that I've done, we have usually found that something like this creates a benefit of anywhere between $50,000 and $80,000 worth of benefit. In other words, sort of enhancement to property value by virtue of having water available. So the only downside that I could see would be if someone were to be able to demonstrate that their property was not benefited to that amount, which I think would be a real stretch to be able to show. You know, considering the history of what we have in the neighborhood, and really it's a stigma that's created in the neighborhood. People are wary of buying down there because they're worried about buying a house that they're going to have adequate water for.
And the only other aspect I could add to that is, you know, we will go out to bid for construction of the water main if we're successful in the referendum, and we'll enter into a very sophisticated contract, and which will have indemnities and warranties, et cetera. So if someone were to try to sue the town over some defective work, we would have recourse under our main contract with the contractors.
And there's one more aspect to this from my grand list component. The contribution of the water company is about 48% of the project. They own 48% of the water line. They're going to be taxed on that.
Utilities. Good.
It's personal property tax.
Perfect, yeah. Right. Anything else?
Actually, I just had more of a curiosity. I may have missed it in the documents, but the timeline after, what's the schedule of all this happening and being completed?
Dennis?
Well, the total length of construction from start to finish, including the design plan of the project, could be 1.5 to 2 years, depending upon the weather, how fast the crews work.
That's the total project including design time, you said, or
Yeah.
just?
Including, yeah.
Okay, including, okay, so up to 2 years.
And then, you know, plus the pure approval.
Right.
Now, I had one question, that would be for Mr. Canestri, and really you don't have to answer this, but I find it very interesting that a contractor who was making as much money as he did in that area would come up here to fight for this. So it's like loss of business. What is it?
You do realize that if you vote for this, you're going to put at least one plumber out of business.
Well, actually, you'll find out.
no, he's going to get a lot of work out of this.
Maybe retire.
They'll do the hookup.
There you go, there he is. Good trade-off.
And then he retires.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
Yeah, one,
The name Wright Pierce came up in one of the statements. What's their role in this?
They'll be designing the water main plus providing the engineering and inspectional services during the installation of the water main.
All right, anybody else? Thank you very much for coming this evening. All right, we have the resolution, we have the a motion on the table. Remember, we are approving the resolution as it was amended and passed out earlier this evening by the first selectman. And I would beg your indulgence not to read it in its entirety. Fine. Good. Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recused? Motion passes.
Matt, you want to just mention the town meeting and the date the vote is going to go forward?
Yes, yeah. That's a good point, Lou. There will be a town meeting on, what is it, the 7th? What's it?
24th, I think, so 24th is the day.
May 24th, there will be a town meeting, at which point it will be theoretically moved to a budget by machine, a referendum by machine vote on the 31st of May. So, thank you. One more, is it 24th?
Memorial Day weekend's the 26th, 27th, right?
Yep. Yeah. So it's,
The town meeting was,
nobody shows up.
it'll be shorter than the one we just had.
And there'll be less people.
I don't know whether that's possible either. Probably is good stuff.
All right. Item 3, approve the minutes. 3.1, regular meeting minutes, April 17th, 2017. Is there a motion? A second?
Second.
Comments, questions, et cetera?
I actually have a couple items.
Yes.
Most of them, I believe, are on page 3. Page 3. I'm just making sure I'm on the regular, not the special ones. Okay, we're good. Under Standing Building Committee minutes, last paragraph, just for clarification purposes, it should probably say there was discussion surrounding the low bidder on the Baldwin project, just to be clear which project it was.
Which paragraph?
That's the very last one.
Right here,
Under
right before 3.2.
And regarding that, I did ask the question at the last building committee meeting in May, a couple weeks ago, and I think I'll let the meeting minutes reflect what my question and the answer was on that 200 to 300,000 related brickwork.
What about
Good.
the question you asked how somebody was able to get into the queue? Did you ever get an answer?
Yes, I did. It was ultimately a good in theory thought, but it was informed by our town attorney that it would not be wise to do that. So that it was
Not be wise to accept that.
not wise to accept it. An on-call list is that you have pre-selected 4 or 3 or however many it is, and I think there was an offer on the table from a firm off that list that although it was less, it was also not. It should not be entertained because of the agreement that the firms had. And I believe that was one of the other questions I had asked that night, so it should be reflected in the May minutes. Pension committee minutes, just a typo on managers at the end of the second line. And the very end of that paragraph, where it starts to, after the comment, but it will be the previous month's report since the current one is not put together by the time packets go out. So just adding not before put.
I
I have not available.
have not available as well.
I'm sorry.
It reads that it will be the previous month's report since the current one is not available by the time Board of Finance packets come.
Oh, you know what?
You printed out your preliminary ones?
I printed out the preliminary one.
You are good.
And I read it and I marked it up and then I didn't even look. Well, you have to tell Tracy, I apologize. You can strike that. Okay. All right. Well, I'm wondering if you caught the next one I saw, which is right at the bottom. There's a review and accept report of expenditures for the town government. It should be Board of Education. Was that corrected? It was right, same page, page 3, number 4, review and accept. The expenditures for town government, that should be Board of Ed.
Yep.
Isn't it nice that we actually, we do actually read these, right? And then, sorry, second to last page, page 6. Oh, let me see yours to make sure.
6?
Yeah, let me just make sure that my comment. Okay, yeah, second paragraph. Ms. Milvese added that the expenditures number was up. Just clarifying which number it was.
Others.
And that is all, and I will know better to read the new ones.
I had one on page 4. 1, 2, 3. Fifth paragraph from the bottom, one that starts Ms. Trudeau said. The second to last line starts with addition, or going back to the end of the line above it. In addition, there are a number of encumbrances. And then on page 5, section 6, the second paragraph where it says Dr. Freeman said they would like to use it to offset some of the deficits they are experiencing in special education. I think that's accurate.
I wasn't there.
And then last one was on page 6. The third paragraph, Ms. Malvese said she did an analysis. I think we should take out the word "and." I think that's all I had.
Any others? Ken?
Yeah, I have one.
Peter?
Page 4. It's a very small correction. It says, Mr. Golds noted that the upkeep of the building and grounds is over. It should be over budget.
That's it, no more work.
That'd be wonderful if it were true.
Ken?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify the clarification of my statement on 2.2 on page 2. Either I didn't get it right or it was not transcribed correctly, but it should read as follows, Karen. Mr. Cameron clarified his statement on page 2. It should read that they haven't yet heard from the town regarding town government's extensive activities that in fact constitute an actual, quotes, return on investment, end quotes. That's what I meant. We were talking about town return on investment for the schools, but never made the same kind of reference for all of the contributions of the town to the lives of our people.
Any others?
I had a question and possible clarification on page 5 at the very top, discussing, well, it says energy usage. It says it was noted that the energy usage in the old high school totaled 340 and the new GHS is about 390. I suspect that means that was supposed to be electricity use as opposed to overall energy use, because I suspect that the heating bill is at a different line item altogether. Do you think it's a combined number?
I don't know, why don't we ask Dr. Freeman to clarify that? Could you take that back, please? Thank you.
I do have, well, I was going to say, I do have the information from the performance contract presentation, so maybe it's in there somewhere, but yeah, it'd be better to get clarification.
My guess is
Dr.
it's
Freeman.
electricity.
I think it is, but
Let's be sure.
Yep.
Couldn't be heating, not at that number.
Any others?
That was it.
What the electric bill is. I think it's both.
I looked at it, I've got it marked in the...
That would be a $35,000 electric bill every month, and I don't recall seeing that in the warrant page, but I could be wrong. Electric.
All right.
So then in that case, it still should be clarified to say the total
Yeah, it
energy
should be,
bill.
I agree.
mean, it's
Right.
ambiguous.
Yeah, I agree.
Could we have clarify that statement as it appears in our minutes? Thank you. Do you have a copy of our minutes?
I don't, but I'll get them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, nothing further on the minutes. Call a question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
I'm abstaining as well. Since I wasn't here. But I wasn't with Lou when I wasn't here. Okay, 3.2, special meeting of April 28th, 2017. Is there a motion? Motion. Second. Second? Second. All, any comments, questions, et cetera? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I'd like to abstain.
You can.
However, I would have been in favor.
For the record.
Yep.
Noted. Correspondence, 4.1, standing building committee minutes. Mike, anything there you want to try to address?
Since we've already gone quite a ways in this meeting, just so you know, April, I was not able to attend the meeting. I did attend May, and those meeting minutes will probably appear next month. So I had, like I said before, I'd asked a couple of questions that will be reflected in May, and as far as April, I'll just entertain any questions anyone has regarding those.
I had one, Mike, on the first page, second paragraph from the bottom. The last line, because this is a public project, the shingles cannot be sole sourced, but it should be sole sourced. So I looked at that whole paragraph. Do they actually bid out the shingles differently from the contractor?
You can't have proprietary, because it's public money, you can't say, this
can't
is the shingle we
specify-
want.
you can't specify.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, yes. You have to, it's proprietary specification, which
Right.
means that you'd be picking one, you have to get at least multiple.
Okay, but you can specify the.
You can specify
the
in
components and description of.
what you want, but you can't say this is the
This
manufacturer
brand.
and the type
Right,
that I want.
okay, that's, okay. But just the way this read out was, it sounded like two different,
Sole source is a little bit
yeah, a little strong,
misleading,
right.
yeah.
Any others?
I had a quick question on section 8, I guess, on page 3. There's just an inconsistency between the figures in there. I'm assuming it's 22.3, right, for both? Okay. And then one other question back to the first page, the second paragraph that starts, Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey reviewed the roof plan. I'm assuming that's the slate roof, not the slate woof.
I'm sorry, what were you, which, page 2?
Page 1, page 1.
Oh, page
I'm
1.
sorry.
Wolf.
There's not a different
No, it's
form
on
of...
page 1.
Yeah, on page 1, the section 5, where the second paragraph that starts, Mr. Huey reviewed the roof plan.
Oh,
It is roof, right?
Yeah, it is.
yes.
Just what I like it.
That was an easy one, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
On page 3, could you, I'm sure there's a reason for this, but if you notice paragraph 6 and paragraph 8, the award on the Baldwin project did not go to the lowest bidder, but the award in 8 on the Cox project did go to the lowest bidder. Do you know why we accepted the low bidder on one but not on the other?
I don't know the reasoning for that.
Maybe we could get back to them.
I could, yes. Having not been at that meeting, I'm not privy to the details of that, but I could find out. Speculation would not be a good thing on that.
No.
I'm not surprised that would happen, but I don't know why. So.
Anybody else? Anything further? Okay, let's move on to 4.2, pension committee minutes. Comments, questions, et cetera?
Yeah, I have a question about the asset allocation. You know, I brought this up once before. Usually between growth and value, you went about 50-50. I mean, that's generally the good mix. They're at 40% for value and about 14% for growth. Now, in 2016, that did very well because obviously value, you know, with the financials did extremely well. But if you look in terms of 2017, growth is up 12% year to date. Value is up only 2%. So I think the pension would do better if they had an equal split between growth and value. And one of the headlines in today's Barron's, it says, "Buy Europe." For the last 2 years, Europe has underperformed tremendously. Now Europe is doing better than domestically. So what I would advise, take some of the money out of value, put it into growth, and overweight international at this particular time.
Good. Peter, if you wouldn't mind, share your sentiments with the pension committee. The board won't take official action on the pension committee's investment decisions, but you can certainly, as an individual, reach out to the pension committee and discuss that.
Okay.
We're moving that way, Peter.
Okay.
Slowly.
Anything else from the pension committee?
Thank you for the detail.
Yeah. Kudos. Take them. Take them.
Apparently not useless this month.
Take them because.
Delete the word useless from the minutes.
That was worth the minutes right there.
Exactly. All right. Item 5, review and accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for April 2017. Welcome. Sorry to extend your evening with the movement of the agenda item there.
No problem.
You want to start,
So,
Dr. Balistracci?
Sure. Expenditures for the month of April. The Board of Education were $4,593,911.71. Expenditures and encumbrances through the end of April were 76.05% of the budget, as compared to 76.10% in the prior year. So we are right in line. We have, as you can see in front of you, various categorical expenses that are either up or down compared to last year in small ways. Salaries of the percent of the budget are expended are slightly lower than the prior year. One thing to note, the substitute teacher line, specifically in the information systems lines, are higher, but those are due to lower budgets than in 2015-2016. We do expect that the substitute teacher line is projected to be a bit over budget, but the information systems line is projected to be within budget by the end of the year, and we will have those covered. Employee benefits are slightly higher, purchase services slightly higher. Tuition is lower than, percent of the budget is lower than the prior year. This is a result of the receipt of the excess cost grant. Supplies and materials capital is slightly higher than the percent of the budget expended than the prior year, and transportation is a bit lower.
Okay, let me touch on that.
Sure.
Cost grant. So in the next year, assuming that is going to be, you're going to get this question, somebody's going to get this question like 5 times next year, because
right.
That line will be completely out of whack as if the state significantly cuts that reimbursement back. So that
Yes.
doesn't just go as a revenue, that really goes as a payment that reduces the expenditure in that line.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement of how the accounting is working?
I believe so, yes. It does reduce that line.
Because based on what you're saying right here, that's the effect we had now. So it came a little earlier this year, and so as a consequence, it looks like it's lower, but we're going to catch up for the rest of the year. But next year, the reimbursements from the state are almost certainly going to be less. And
right.
that item will look like it's significantly, we're expending more, but we got to sort of just bear in mind that
right. I mean,
we're getting less
and as you
reimbursement.
can well imagine, we are all thinking about that on a regular basis and how
There
we're
should
gonna
just be a
think about
permanent
that.
asterisk on that line, though, is all I'm saying, as the reports come
Right.
through.
Yeah. Right.
Just to stay on that real quick, it
Sure.
is still expected that line item is going to run higher.
Yeah.
Right?
Back to this year.
Yeah, it was running
The
lower
tuition line.
because of the ECG, but it's the tuition line is going to still run.
Yes,
higher than
although we did,
budget.
we are expecting, we have not yet received it, we are expecting another payment, and it looks like that payment may then, in total, reflect that we've received a little over 75%, which is higher than we expected and higher than we budgeted for. As Bill reminded us all on last Monday, it's still not 100%, but we know that it hasn't been that way for some time. But that's good news, and will certainly help with that tuition line.
Other questions?
Yeah, I noticed that workman's compensation is way up. Is any particular reason that is someone out for long-term disability, or?
Peter, what was that? I'm sorry. Workers' comp.
I'm sorry. It's,
Workers' comp?
Yeah, workers' comp. It's up quite a bit. I'm just wondering why it's up so much.
I can't speak specifically to that, but we can certainly.
I will research that and make sure you can find out in an email.
The good news is there were no April expenditures, which might suggest that that case has dropped off.
It's been.
Ken?
Pension compensation, our pension contributions are down slightly from this point last year. Is that just timing, do we think, or is it just a reflection of something else?
I'll also find that out.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll find that
Send
out.
that along.
All right, great.
Question?
Ken?
Why is the substitute teachers line over budget?
So it's over budget compared to last year.
Yes.
But last year, we had a different denominator. Thank you. I mean, we're looking, it's higher than the prior year due to lower budgets for 2016-17. We've eaten up just a proportion of a smaller pie.
I have another, can we ask questions about the warrants at this point?
You can, and we'll do our best. I'm sure you're aware, Linda's unable to be with us tonight, so we're pinch hitting for her.
And we'll take questions. We'll take questions.
You're pinch hitting well. Question on page 7 for 2 invoices to Green Chimney Children's Service. It's a bit puzzling because one would think that the residence tuition would be far greater than the regular tuition, yet it seems to be 1/4 for February, for the month of February. It's $16,000 for tuition, for one tuition, and one residence tuition is $4,600.
It's a special needs program, and I'm not exactly sure how they do their billing, or if I can see if I can find out more from the Pupil Services Department and let you know on that as well.
Although I'm going to say, without knowing the specifics, because of the costs clearly that are incurred by students with special needs, to have the daily treatment actually be costing more
than
the overnight stay may not be particularly surprising.
Okay. And I've never seen this before, but on page 5, where there's about $800 in mileage filed with name removed for privacy.
Driving their students.
So
A student being driven.
Yes. Yeah. So there are, in some instances, particular arrangements made between the administration and our pupil services and parents who may be providing transportation for their child in lieu of our contracting a special bus run for them.
Okay. I don't believe I've ever seen that, but I may be wrong.
I think it's leaked through.
You've seen it?
Yeah, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
It's been there.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
What's the $68,000 GHS student activity reimbursement?
That's the ice hockey that they paid for initially. We reimburse it. It's $20,000, I believe, along with.
Yeah, 20 is the hockey. I know that. What's the other?
The other 48.
30K for officials.
Yes, you're right. The officials.
And
Student
then
Activities Fund is gate receipts, all
It's
that kind of stuff
exactly
that goes
right.
back in to pay for some of the athletic
They have
expenses.
to teach here.
Mike? Sorry.
If I go back to the spreadsheet, purchase services. There's a few items that are running higher. Legal, special services, upkeep of building and grounds, and service to machines, which is not a large amount, but still running over. My question is really focused on upkeep of buildings and grounds. There's about 230,000 encumbered, and we're already well over the budget for that. I'm wondering what is included. Do you know, is it multiple items making up the 230 in the encumbrances? So, in other words, if that needs to be, are there encumbrances that could be canceled? Is that making up one big item that needs to?
I'm sure it's multiple. I'll get more detail on that. I don't have that in front of me.
It's a large amount. We're already over, and I'm just wondering what might suffer by encumbrances being canceled on that.
Okay. I will certainly find out.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, might some of those things be things that are set aside for after the school year ends, the projects that you're going to do just to give us a sense of the timing of what we're talking about, that those encumbrances are for.
That's a good follow-up.
Okay.
And a question around that is typically upkeep of buildings and grounds is one of those line items that you wind up holding until you see what the balance of your budget looks like.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
Anything else?
Can I go back to the warrants?
You can go back to the warrants.
On page 3, there's an item for $3,000 for Camp Northwood. Is that special education as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Anything else? Nope. Satisfied? You're good? Check your note, make sure.
I'm all set.
You're good? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to accept the bills? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
No low content.
Celtics are up. Hello, Mary Jane. How are you? Item 6, review and approve expenditure for town government for April 2017. What would you like to bring to our attention? If there's anything, or you just want to go right into questions, because it's quarter to 9.
Well, real briefly, at the end of April, at 83% through the year for revenues and expenses. In revenues, at this time last year, we were 99.9, and we can say we are at 100% of budgeted revenues at this point. This figure does include, however, the excess cost grant, which you approved to transfer. That transfer on our end is being made in May. We just received the funding in April. The transfer is just going through. Okay. I would like to note that we did receive updated figures on that, and there's like a $600 difference. We are transferring the exact amount that we've received as opposed to the amount in your motion. So if that's a problem, we'll have to address it. But we did go over that with Linda when I saw a discrepancy in the numbers. So just want to let you know that.
So does that mean that next month we may see this be less than 100%?
Well, I think it's like point. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
not
yes.
too
well,
much.
hopefully we're going to get more revenue in this month, which will offset it. So.
That was my next question.
Yeah. And so in that line item, the ECS grant by the end of the year will show the $171,000 deficit, which is the cut that we received from the state. Although right now you're showing that we've received more revenue than budgeted. Once we make that transfer out, that 171 will become clear. In that line item. So I just wanted, that's why I wanted to bring that to your attention. We have one more state grant that we're waiting for to come in, but overall, assuming that it does, never know these days, but assuming that it does, our state revenue should be about $65,000 more than budgeted due to some additional funding in other areas from the state. So overall, our regular state funding should be fine.
The net of the two state revenue lines would be about 107,000 loss between our ECS and our other state revenues, so there still will be a loss there. Our local revenues, as you can see, are all on track at this point. We do have some that are a little lower, but others that are higher, balancing us out to that 100%.
I have a question.
Okay.
On that, local revenue.
Yep.
So the finance department is literally twice what was budgeted, which is...
I'm awesome.
So exciting. And I suspect this has come up before. I sort of remember this, but I want to kind of just... That's not likely to carry through next year, right? Isn't that a function of just bond money being...
No. This is the interest that we receive on our accounts.
Yeah, but I thought that's because so the interest has gone up twice?
Yeah.
Not that high. I mean, it's gone up, as these guys like to say, half a basis point, right?
It went down very low during the worst times.
Right.
It's been coming up, but the budget hasn't been brought up. But in this next year's budget, we have increased that budget to represent that. So it has been slowly creeping up.
So that's not a function of just having more cash as a result of bond funds that have come in and out of the accounts?
It would have a slight effect, but it would not be this much of a bump.
Okay, so this is interest rate increases
Correct.
as a result of our annual cash flow. We've earned more money.
Which I've brought up before. If we should run roughly 20 million. If we take in 80 million in tax receipts, we pay it out. We take it in twice a year. That's 40 million over 6 months. So you cut it in half. Your average balance should be 20 million. Roughly. Correct. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me. So, at 1%, that would be $200,000 per year. So we're running at what, $80,000 a year. So that's 30 bips, 35 bips, which is what everybody gets. And T-bill rates are 1% now. So I guess my question is, why isn't this line bigger than it is?
Where's the money?
It started out so well.
No, it's fine. It is one of my goals to look at how we invest our funds that we get in from the tax revenue when we can. I have already met with our banks that we use, and I hope to meet with some other banks to try to diversify. We don't have a lot of diversity in our investments, and there's short-term funding that we can do for the time that we have that extra cash flow between July and maybe September, and then January through April. So it's on my to-do list to do that, and like I said, I have met with a couple banks already. Haven't made any changes yet.
How's our distribution between the state investment funds, the STIF funds versus cash on hand at Wells Fargo or whatever bank that we have?
Well, we put into STIF certain deposits that come in, go directly into STIF, but on a day-to-day basis, most of our money's in Webster.
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking to diversify a little bit better.
Webster not.
Yeah.
What are you projecting as the...
Just no derivatives, please?
Yeah. What are you projecting as the final tax collection number?
Oh, no, that I have to admit I haven't looked at. I would expect that it would be as high as we normally are, 98, 99%, based on the revenues that have been coming in. But I have not looked at that number specifically.
Any others?
So this number should be at least $100,000 a year, at least, with the rates where they are now, and really more.
It'd be nice.
What's the budget for next year?
I think
I don't know. I think
it's only up to 40.
Yeah, it's not much higher than it was for this year.
We shall see.
All right. Any other questions on revenue? Expenditures?
Not too much to say on expenditures. We're 80% spended this year as opposed to 73.5 last year. I would just like to note that when you look at the debt, principal and interest, and also the reval, those items will be transferred at the end of the year with reserves. We have our refunded bond money that we have to cover the deficit in the debt, and Reval itself has its own funding that we've set aside. So those numbers, although they're over budget right now, will not be once the final transfers are done.
Mike?
Engineering and Public Works. Kind of the same question I had with Board of Ed on theirs on encumbrances.
Absolutely.
271, and I took a look to see where a lot of that was, and it seems to be in equipment repair and maintenance, and then the summer and winter road maintenance. Summer and winter, I think, is usually encumbered to get resources or get materials for the next year and to spend it then. But on those two, we're over already.
Right, it just...
well, actually, we're over, but if we take the
because of
encumbrances
the
out.
encumbrances, right.
Okay.
Right.
And then the equipment repair and maintenance, is that due, do you know what the reason for that amount of encumbrance?
Well, it's typically encumbered early in the year for more blanket-type purchases for our ongoing maintenance and for large items like our, we just recently bought the brushes for our sweepers and those types of things.
I guess the question is, and it's come up before with us, we have new equipment, quite a bit of new equipment that over the, capital has gotten better, and we have newer equipment, but it could also be more expensive.
Joe wanted to...
And then the other thing is, the old equipment, it gets more pricey to be able to find the parts for it. So I'm just wondering what kind of a balance that is, or if those both are contributing, or... Go ahead, Joe.
Mike, it's not only, you mentioned new equipment, we do have equipment that is pricier to repair. It's one of my biggest peeves. I can't reconcile it. But Finance Director is correct. We do have a lot of blanket purchase orders out there, but that's for all the equipment that Public Works services in the town, whether it's for police, except for fire. Police vehicles, Town Hall South vehicles, Park and Rec vehicles. No. Golf course equipment, their own equipment, so it could be tires, it could be oil filters, whatever they want to stock. But at the end of the year, and Mary Jane is going through this right now, they start to cancel those purchase orders.
So we'll see those numbers?
No.
No, I'm sorry. We'll see those numbers start to dwindle as they get canceled. That's what I was... Yeah, okay.
Right, that's what I was about to say. Just last week, I sent an email to all the departments with significant amount of encumbrances to have them start looking at that, so we can see where we're really going to be at the end of the year. So they're all working on that as we speak.
The classic case is that they have those orders out there for if the transmission breaks in the middle of a snowstorm. They don't have to hunt it down for a purchase order. They have it on file.
This is the time of year we're cleaning up a lot of those type of issues.
We also transfer from funds from the individual departments back into that line item. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So if you take a look at police, at health department, town properties, they all have vehicle maintenance lines in there. So when that is actually expended, there's a transfer that's made from that, from that line item back into Public Works.
Right. The only thing that we don't charge the departments for is labor.
Anything else?
On the funds.
I have a question on warrants.
Warrants and funds. Here we go.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the special fund, the second item, dedicated from the dedicated road fund, which comes up. Yeah, right. $114,000 for water tank and installation. First of all, what is that project? And secondly, what do we have left in the dedicated road fund? Question I ask every 3 months.
Okay. I don't have the dedicated road fund amount with me, but I can guarantee you that for the end of June 30 for the end of the year, all of those funds will be updated at that point. And then I've been telling Joe, as soon as I have them updated, then it'll be far easier for me to do them on a regular basis than to do it once a year or occasionally has it have done. But I don't have that right now. The water tank, Joe's going to have to help me remember where it was put in.
That's for the 30,000 gallon storage tank for firefighting up at Podunk Road. Yeah, and we charge the special fund for that. That was a condition of putting that development up there, which we never got to, but we did it now.
So along that, while we're talking about dedicated road fund, the dedicated road fund, I believe, has close to $900,000 in it. Might be less, but only 412. So Mr. Portley has a spreadsheet which has monies on it that are allocated to the various developments as they went in. Included in the dedicated road fund is $198,000 of accrued interest, which our council has told us, which council years ago when Matt was on this board, because Matt and John Trotta and myself have brought this up before, but the $198,000 that's sitting there in accrued interest really should be transferred over to the town. It should not be in the dedicated road fund. It has nothing to do with dedicated road. And again, council, there's a memo out there where council agreed with this, that there is no obligation to the developers. The concern historically has been that any monies that were allocated to various parts of town where development occurred was to be used for road improvements around those areas. But this particular piece, again, it was quite clear, and I think you were CC'd on the memo because it was at a time when you were requesting it as well. Right. So to me, that's money that's out there. Mr. Portley did indicate that he had money set aside for this water tank, which is not part of the $198,000, which was residing in the dedicated road fund. And he mentioned another project which he is also holding money for. I don't recollect which one it is off the top of my head, but there's another capital project that he has earmarked with dedicated road fund money.
And there's my interest money.
There's some interest money. There you go. I don't know how he got $198,000 worth of interest over the years. It's been in there a long time, and rates were really high back in the '80s, or early '80s. But yeah, it's.
I'll look into that if you have a copy of that memo or whatever.
I think I have a copy of that memo somewhere.
I want to say it's from 2005, but maybe it wasn't quite that long ago.
No, I think it was.
It's been a while
long ago. That's when I raised the question about being able to use being able to use dedicated road fund money to buy trucks, because I had, so this is back when we were buying trucks from Wallingford, and I said, no, there's a better way to do this. But that question of the interest did come up, and whether or not the interest should go to that account or it just falls to fund balance.
Well, I think the legal thing was stated whether we could use that
interest,
we could use that for other purposes.
Right.
I believe it said no.
Well, I don't know about the interest. The interest might have been dealt with separate. There may have been an open question about the interest piece, but the contributions themselves was pretty clear. They couldn't be used for anything other than the definition of what
I agree with that. That's what the memo says. The contributions should be left alone, but the interest was not earmarked and was.
I don't know. I don't remember what it said about the interest.
You know what? The original ordinance was probably silent on the interest, which is
Often towns put this money aside in non-interest-bearing accounts just for that reason.
When was Gene first selected? Because I think that's when it was.
Gene?
Yeah. This is a quiz.
2003.
Okay. Around that time. 2003 to 2005. Yeah. Okay.
2003.
2-year terms.
And so if we could circle back to the question that started it all, this water tank is necessary for fire suppression.
Correct.
Right? And that was contemplated at the time the development was put in. So that's within the ambit of this description that you're giving us that says look, these are payments from the developer to benefit.
This is a viable use.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that was the one that had not only payments from the developer, but the payments from homeowners, correct? Right, so the developer and the homeowners put money in for this, and it's just sat
So
for
they
a
can
while.
have, okay.
But, so that's why, it
Fire
was put in
service.
this fund just to set it aside.
Okay, because I mean, somebody could look at that and say, water
Why-
tank doesn't
yeah,
really
why is
feel like road service.
It was just put in that because it's dedicated,
Okay.
you know.
There wasn't enough contributions, so we were able to use a dedicated road fund to augment it.
Anything else on warrants?
Quick one on,
Or
on the,
special fund?
and it's, again, curiosity, property tax refunds, there's a number of them, Vault Trust. What is?
It's a leasing
Vault?
company.
It's a leasing company
Mhm.
for
cars?
Cars,
That's,
yep.
I just
Yep.
wanted, that's what I thought, but because there were.
Quite a few of them, yeah, so they submit them all at one time.
Why is there an $83,000 refund to DDR?
I actually sent that question to our tax collector today. There were two large tax refunds. I didn't get an answer back before tonight's meeting. Oh, there we go.
They filed an appeal, and it was a settlement on their tax appeal, assessment appeal.
They appealed the land value or the building value?
I don't know what they appealed, but they appealed it, and we settled on it. I would assume it was the building because they've been paying their land all along.
The building's
10
valued at
years.
16. And if you take out 83, that's roughly 40% would be 330. Yeah, it's like $3.5 million of market value off of the 16, which is a big cut. You're saying that the buildings are only worth 12.5?
Yeah, I was
That's another issue.
curious about that myself.
I still have more. Equity valuation services. I thought we had a contract, like we're over budget with them now by $30,000. There's another payment to them.
For the reval?
Yeah.
It's a $122,000 contract. Like I said earlier, in the expense, we have been putting money aside for reval, so even though our budget shows in the current year it's over budget, that reval fund will make it whole. And in next year's budget, I think there's an $83,000 line item for reval. That's the final amount we would need for the total 122. So between the money we have in there now and next year's contribution, it's the whole 122,000.
I'm sorry, I missed you on that. So it's a $122,000 contract over 1 year or over multiple years?
No, it's over multiple
So
years.
that's why we only budgeted 50 for this year.
Correct.
But we're actually we're paying more of it this year, so we'll.
Right,
I got
so there's
you.
money,
Okay,
there's
fine.
money already set aside, it'll be transferred at the
Gotcha.
end of the year.
Okay.
Now, we had a special fund relating to the first item on tonight's agenda. We had a special fund for water main feasibility. How much was in that fund? Because I see that $8,000 of that was appropriated this month.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the total was in there.
We can find out.
The water main
Yeah.
feasibility study, do we have more money to be expended out of that, I wonder?
No, we get
It's
special funds for that.
Yeah.
But when the project is complete, that's part of the assessment that the 145
Okay.
property owners will pay.
Right, regardless of what's in the fund, all of it's going to be replenished.
Right.
Then,
And I just want to, oftentimes when we know that's going to happen, that fund will overdraw, so to speak, and then it'll be
Okay.
replenished. So I'm not sure what's in there, but we would continue to put our expenses there.
Because right now, it's just legal and surveying costs.
Correct, and the
Okay.
easements. Mhm.
there's also there's $134,000 for the reconstruction of Long Hill Road. And based on prior conversations I've had I asked the question at one of our hearings, and I believe Mr. Mazza answered, and then I have had conversations with Mr. Portley, and in both of those conversations, I was led to believe Perhaps I misinterpreted what I was being told, but I was led to believe that we had already paid our 10%, which is what our commitment is for this construction. We're getting 80% from the feds and 10% from the state, and we're putting in 10%, I think is the way it's going to work.
Correct.
So I was told that we paid our share years ago in the form of engineering work that was done. So
Correct.
I'm curious as to why I'm seeing this now.
You're going to see this every month because we have to pay the contractor before the state will reimburse us. So we have two invoices out to the state right now for the first two payments. They asked for them monthly, so we're always going to be in arrears.
So we have actually paid the money then, and this money's coming back to us?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So you'll see an amount similar to that every single month because the state is who's requested to see that on a monthly basis, so we have it worked out with the contractor.
So when the money comes back in, we don't see revenues into the special fund, so I'll just see the outflows, and I have to assume that the inflows, that's your job to make sure the inflows are there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's no different from the school project. We
Correct.
pay it out
Right.
and get reimbursed.
Right, the state looks
After
at
they
everything after the fact.
nitpick.
Yes.
Other people's.
Oh, did I just say that?
You did, but it's all right.
Then I had one more
Technically
in
correct.
legal. There were two medical bills, one for $750, both the same person, I won't say their name. One, $750 for cardiology and a records review for $1,470. What is that?
Probably a workers' comp case.
Is it a case?
I think that was an H&H claim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. That's why it's going to be.
Sorry, I'm done.
It's a little odd that it comes through directly to us as opposed to Washington. So it was an invoice from the law firm? Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Medical benefits continues to be strong for revenue.
Right, when you look at our expenditures for the year, it does continue to look really good. However, you do have to look at the catastrophic claims because that's where, we're really making up the difference over there. So luckily, our insurance for that is really covering it. But a lot of the claims are being, they're over there instead of under our regulars. So, but
So these are the couple of months when it's really going to come home to roost.
it's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, like you said, that's doing really well. Our revenue is doing as projected, and we're looking at $2.7 million projected for June 30 if things, or even more if things continue along the way they are.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think at some point we'll need to have some discussion, and most likely as a result of whatever happens up in Hartford.
Correct.
So we used to talk about having, at least the IBNR in the account to roll forward. And even if we were to extend that to 1.5 times IBNR, that would leave us with $1.2 million in that fund that could be swept for other situations if we need it. And we may need to go there. So.
When do we get hit with our premium on our overage, the ISIL? When does that come up?
That would be
Is that
July
It
1
would
for
be
the
July
fiscal
1.
year. July
Yeah,
1.
and we are getting hit pretty heavy in that. This, our rates for the regular claims are actually very good. Where we're seeing our increase is in the catastrophic claims.
Well,
I mean, look at the number.
It's been a couple of years in a row
All you have
that
to do
we've
is look
been
at the
on the right
number,
side of that.
right? Yeah.
So this begs the question, and again, I don't need to add extra work to anybody, but we have total claims over 75,000 of 3.7 million versus 1.6 million for those over 150. What's a differential on getting a policy that covers above 75?
What was the other number, 1.6?
Yeah, 1.6 million. So the question is, what's the cost of the premium to drop it to anything over 75,000? Is there an opportunity to
Right, to
drop
try
it?
to tweak it, yeah.
Yeah. So
You can certainly ask those questions of our,
my assumption is it's a pretty big jump because there was a
Yeah, 'cause it's
pretty good
gonna-
jump when we went from
Yeah.
250. Was it 150?
Yeah.
No, we,
Yeah, it was over.
It's 150 now.
150 now, it was like 250 at one point, so.
Could tell me anything. I have to look back. So to drop it
Is that
to,
a question for our insurance consultant?
yeah, I'll talk to Mitch. He'll,
Thank you.
We'll wait about 2 weeks.
well, yeah,
Just
We're
on
gonna get it
vacation
anyway.
today.
Mitch is away.
He is. Good for him. All right, anything else on
Text him tomorrow.
building building permits, golf course, anything? Nothing, good. All right,
Is there anything with this?
what's that?
The suspension.
Another agenda.
Oh, yeah, that's
Let's
not me.
approve the bills.
That's not me. Thank you.
Getting out one
Thank
again?
you, thank
Getting
you.
good? Thank you. There's a motion to approve the bills for the town in the amount of $811,838. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? None. Good. Okay, item 8, committee reports, none at this point.
Item 7.
Item 7, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Receive and take action on tax collector's recommendation of uncollectibles to be transferred to suspense list. We have documentation in front of us that, from the tax collector, Deborah Milano, who recommends that a total of $45,305.58 be transferred to the suspense account, and from grand list year of 2013, personal property tax, personal property in the amount of $12,893.71, motor vehicle $27,760.34, motor vehicle supplemental $4,651.53, and as I said, a total of $45,305.58. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Let's do a motion first, and a second. Questions, Ken?
So some of, I just looked through it, but some of these, I'm a little confused on why we can't collect it. So Splash Restaurants for sale up there, that's on here for $2,000. So we have a lien on that, I assume, before any transfer of property can take place. But there are other people in here that I'm
gonna
sure
take a
pay their
stab at
bills.
that. I think so the difference with like a restaurant and the real property is this is personal property. The business page is probably the easier question. There's an LLC running the business that had no money when they were shutting the door, and certainly has no money 2 years later, as opposed to some other entity owns the real estate where there's no real estate debt that we don't collect. Right? I mean, this town we're over 100%.
That with autos, the autos.
And the autos disappear, people sell cars, they
They
move.
move out of town.
So we have no recourse to the people that are in town that owe these auto taxes then?
Well, my question was going to be along those lines, which is, I mean, I think it's it's a suspense book. I think if somebody happened to come back and happened to start getting themselves on the tax rolls,
It's not written off.
the tax collector could reactivate this.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. It doesn't mean we stopped trying to collect the taxes.
Right.
Right.
It just takes them off our current collectibles.
That's all.
They will continue to try to stop.
So the businesses, my guess is the businesses are a super long shot, because nobody's going to reactivate a previously defunct business. It's possible, but unlikely. The individuals with the motor vehicles, I mean, I hate to say it, you recognize a couple names every once in a while, and as you go through that list, and some of those people could move back. Well, they're left, they've left.
They've left, that's
And when they move back, maybe we'll send them a postcard.
I checked.
What's that?
To your clients to make sure you're good.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right.
So,
Is there
And real estate, by the way, we do tax sales.
tax sales and things? That's right. And the motor vehicle ones, it's tough to register a car in this state if you owe somebody
That's when
another
you
town.
get your money.
That's assuming
That's how you get
that's assuming DMV's computer system's working the way it's supposed to.
That's another issue.
Yeah, that's something hopefully they'll never change, because
Right.
that's the only reason people come and pay their
Yeah.
motor vehicle tax.
I need to register.
Some of those people may be deceased too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. I did have one question, because this happened years ago, and Joe may remember this, but are we sure that there's no one on these lists that has a contract with the town? That does work for the town?
I can tell you that the tax collector is very cognizant of that,
Okay.
because we entered into an agreement very small agreement with a vendor in town, and she came running up into my office and said, why are you doing this when they haven't paid their taxes?
Okay,
Took care of it right away.
thank you.
We got the taxes paid is what he means by that.
Okay, call the question? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Yep. You got the original from the signature? Okay, I'll get that when we're done. Item 8, committee reports, any? Old business? New business? Public forum?
I just want to, if I may take a moment to make a clarification.
Sure.
The question you asked at the end of our conversation,
Sure.
which is obviously going to make a lot of sense too when you look at the numbers here. When the administration and the Board of Ed is concerned about money as we head towards June, it is not the upkeep of buildings and grounds line, but it is the capital
line, that's okay.
site improvements line, which of course is the one that actually has an available balance in it. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Clarify that.
Thank you very much. All right, public forum? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Another unanimous vote. That's always a unanimous vote.